Hi folks, this is Jack with Shar Music, and today on the workshop I'm going to show you how to change your strings. So the first thing you want to do before you change your strings, make sure your instrument's in working order. In particular, I want to make sure that the bridge is at a good angle, and to me, that is a pretty good angle. Along with that, I'm taking a look at the sound post, and the sound post, I can see it in through the F-hole here. It's right about there. And I'm just making sure that it's not leaning in one particular direction or the other. It looks like it's in there nice and solid. And I just like to make sure that, hey, the rest of the instrument sounding pretty all right. So, the big thing to remember when you're changing your string, and this is for violinists, violists, cellists, and bassists, do one string at a time. There is quite a lot of tension being pushed down onto the top plate here, and that tension is keeping that sound post up. That sound post is actually what takes the vibration from that top plate into the bottom plate. So if that falls, your instrument's gonna sound a little weird. So that said, make sure that you have some tension on the bridge and just do one string at a time. Today, I'm just gonna show you how to change the one. It's the same process on bass, cello, viola, and violin. I'm using a cello today because it's just a little easier to see. So without further ado, let's change that string. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my strings are relatively in tune. And like I mentioned in our before, the main reason for that is I want to make sure there is enough tension pushing down on the top plate here to make sure that sound post stays up. So, close enough. All right, I'm going to start with the C. And really, I'm just going to show you guys how to do one string. I'm loosening it. Get it out of the peg, remove it from the tailpiece, and I'm just gonna set this aside. So your old strings it is general common practice to use your old strings as your emergency strings, just in case your whatever set you put on breaks or something happens. You know, it's always nice to have that used set as your backup. So, next step, But Jack, why do you have a pencil? I thought we were changing strings. We're changing strings like a professional today. That graphite on the tip of that pencil is what we're going to use here in the nut groove. Ooh. And we're just gonna kind of color that in. And what this is doing, that graphite is actually acting as a lubricant here on the nut. Get a nice little bit in there. And a little bit here on the bridge. So again, that graphite is acting as a lubricant to help that string sort of slide along these two contact points. This also helps your string's longevity. So for most folks, it's going to be easy enough to just hook it into the tailpiece and line it up. It's much harder to do from the side. Line it up through the groove in the bridge as well as the groove in the nut. Now the next bit may be a little tricky. If you look on your peg, you should see a little bitty hole. Your string needs to go through that hole. So I'm gonna put down my pencil. And I'm gonna line that up as best I can. Now I like to make sure that a bit of it is through. I don't put a heck of a lot because otherwise you might get some buzzing, but a little bit of that string should poke through on the other side. Now the next step is, and this is a little important, we want to wrap one side around the thinner part of the peg, and then we want to wrap the rest of it around the thicker side. This not only helps with keeping the string in place, but it also helps line it up with these grooves. Most strings will have a break-in period. For cello, violin, viola, bass strings, we're looking at probably a couple of days of consistent tuning. For some of the synthetics, for particularly nylon strings like you would see on ukuleles and classical guitars and stuff, those strings are going to require probably a solid week's worth of consistent tuning because those nylon strings just stretch for ages. So that's the process. It's the same exact process for the rest of your strings. Bear in mind, do these strings one at a time. Make sure that sound post is up. And now that we get some tension on there, I'm going to double check this bridge to make sure that it's perpendicular. It's looking good. And that's how you change your string.